Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you a book review from the Give Yourself Goosebumps series, in its special edition number 7, Trick or Trapped. For those of you that don't have this book in your collection, I understand how impactful it is to own something like this. This book is often considered one of, if not the rarest Goosebumps book that was regularly released back in the OG 62 and the Series 2000 era, where you had Tales and Give Yourself on the side. This is widely considered to be the rarest Goosebumps book outside of the promo books like the Hershey's trilogy with the 3 Haunted Library books, and some of the later in the run TV books like books 14, 16, 17, and 18. They're up there with this in rarity. This is one of the rarest books. I completely acknowledge that, and I do display this book on my shelf proudly because I am very fortunate to own this. But with that being said, though, this has to be one of the worst Goosebumps books I have ever read. Ever. From the sheer corniness of the endings, the setups, everything, from the just dryness of lack of horror in this book, down to the abysmal game function this book offers. And I'm not even going to get into that yet. I'm going to save that for the end of the video. But this book is just marred with heavy hitting problems for me. I mean, and it might sound like I'm skimming over the book when I go over the review. I'm going to go ahead and say this now. This book doesn't have a lot of meat to chew on when it comes to reviewing, simply because the way the book is set up, and I'll explain that when I get into the plot overview and everything. But I just want to say off the bat, this has to be one of the worst Goosebumps books I've ever read. It's not the worst. I don't think it's bottom 5 particularly, but I think it's definitely top 10. This is bad. This is very, very, very bad. Okay, let's get into the plot overview without giving too much away. So, like in every single Give Yourself Goosebumps book, you are the main character. In case you don't know anything, if you're out there watching about Give Yourself Goosebumps, you, the reader, are the main character in the story, and you're given the responsibility of choosing paths in the story, making decisions, and keeping track, and abiding by the game rules that the book lays out. Now, in this particular book, you are on Halloween night. You're about to go out trick-or-treating. You have dressed up like a vampire. You say goodbye to your family, and you walk outside, and you start making your way down the road. And you come across this street you're not very familiar with. It's called Sunshine Court. And it's presumably called that because of the houses on the court are very bright colored houses, and they're all different colors. So there's 5 houses, and then there's one big gated mansion house. There's a red house, a blue house, a green house, a yellow house, and an orange house that surround the front before you go into the gate. But it does seem like there's paths interconnected from the house that can lead you from the doors of the like sides of the house or the back sides of the house into the area where you need to get inside to the White Mansion. And when you notice this, you see this kid that you know named Nathan. And Nathan has a trick-or-treat bag filled with candy. And he said he got all this candy from trick-or-treating at these houses and then ending up at the White Mansion. And he put some emphasis that you need to end up at the White Mansion because that's where the mother lode is. So, immediately throws you into a decision of which house to hit first before, you have to end up being at the White Mansion. Now, to kind of preface some things before we get into the house choices and what goes on in each house, this book is a special edition because it offers a different formula to how to play the game book. Some regular Give Yourself Goosebumps books, they have map functions, they have these cool riddle functions just in the book. However, in this particular story, the special feature power play here is that you're supposed to write down you're supposed to have a coin on you, and you're supposed to write down which candy you pick up throughout your adventures. It will tell you which candies that you pick up, and to make sure you jot them down, because supposedly they're supposed to come up at a part of the story where you're going to have to potentially barter with some characters with the candy inside of your bag. However, only one of these houses actually use that function. Every other house doesn't. That's a bummer. And I'll start off with the house that lets you use the function, which is the red house, which ironically is the very top option in the book itself. So if you choose the red house, this is arguably the best of the 5 houses, I would say. So you knock on the door, and a man in a Santa Claus costume answers the door. And of course, you're taken back, and then he reveals that, this is a costume party, come on in. And of course, you pick up some candies and whatnot. You pick up some, I think you pick up candied apples and stuff. And it comes to a point where you get to interact with this really weird ghost and this pirate and these elves and goblins. It offers some really corny setups and endings, I have to say, though. But the best part of this red house here is if you follow the path of the Santa Claus. So you follow this path where you make these choices and what have you, and then it leads you to this big pivotal path where, I kid you not, there's a talking rat that barters with you for a piece of candy. Now, if you give him the piece of candy, it offers you a shortcut to the White Mansion where you get to skip all the other houses, which is another gripe I'm going to get into real quick. Every single one of these houses in this book has a shortcut to the White Mansion, which kind of helps the pace of the first time reading through it. If you were to play through, just in a regular game mode, you don't want to, put bookmarks down and read the whole book, you just want to play through it. It does help on that aspect, but man, does it make leading up to the White Mansion kind of a buzzkill, because it's just easy to get to it. And if you read this book, you'll see why and how easy it is to get through these houses and find your way to the White Mansion. But anyways, after dealing with the random rat thing barter, if you don't give him the candy, this arguably leads you down to the scariest path of the whole book. And this is probably the only scary moment in this whole book. And you basically come to realize that Christmas has come early. Except that this room they send you to is they call it a tomb. And he's and you're thinking why did they mean to say room? Why is it a tomb? And you get to meet Santa Claus. Santa Claus is actually in the book. He's actually real. But there's a genuine twist with Santa. And I have to say, out of all of the endings in the book, this one was the one that I got most enjoyment out of. This was actually pretty creepy. So, thankfully, I had one good ending in this book that I enjoyed. But everything else basically sucks. And I'll get into that as I go along. But I'm going to save the whole White Mansion for the end, because that's basically more than half of this book is centered around the White Mansion, right? So, kind of skimming over, I guess we'll jump to the Blue House. Now, if you go to the Blue House, there's this weird thing where you go to knock on the door, but your family answers the door, and they say, "Surprise, we moved here. This is our new house." And you're like, okay, this is very weird. And your parents are acting very strange, and they give you 2 options. They won't let you go back out and choose other houses. They basically say that either you choose to play a game with them, or you go to bed and go to sleep. Now, if you go to bed, this is one of those shortcuts, kind of like the rat thing, where if you go to bed, you can find a shortcut to the White Path yourself. However, if you choose to play the game with your family, if you do the game correctly and you win the game, it gives you an option to go back out trick-or-treating and pick more houses. So there are cool ways this book does allow you to move throughout the story. It gives you different options. You can go pick other houses, or you can go straight to the White Mansion. Like I already said, my gripes about the White Mansion. What I do like about this book is that it makes it easier to get to different houses as you move along, with giving you these side options here by winning or doing certain events or challenges. I like that aspect. I guess we'll go to the orange house, which honestly is one of the weirder ones. You encounter this mad scientist with a pet gorilla, and there's like padded cells in here that he throws you into. There's an experiment he wants to conduct on you where you have to eat this candy basically till you can't eat anymore because he's trying to build the perfect candy. It's just very bizarre in this one. I did not like any of the endings. It was very corny. The whole bartering, there's bartering with the gorilla to get candy from him, or you can give him some type of candy, but it doesn't really. That's like the only function in this part of the book where you can, outside of the red house, where you can give a character some candy or something. And I found that very strange, and it just didn't land. The orange house was a big dud. Same thing with the yellow house. The yellow house is super weird. It had a great setup in the beginning. Felt like this creepy haunted house, and when you open this door, it sends you to this Arctic tundra where you encounter a talking polar bear, and he forces you to take a piece of candy because if you don't, he'll kill you. It's very weird. But you go down these two paths where you get picked from two caves. Both endings weren't good, even though one ending does give you a route back to the houses again, and it gives you a route to the White Mansion. And then there's another ending that kind of takes you back to your home, and you just decide to quit from there, as the ending says. But what I have to say about the ending is that this has to be the dumbest ending I've ever read in a Give Yourself Goosebumps book, where, I kid you not, the polar bear has arrived on a plane. The polar bear can drive a plane, and he picks you up and drives you from the Arctic back to your house, and then drives back. That is the dumbest thing I think I've ever read in a Give Yourself Goosebumps book. I have to be honest. It was so bad. And I'm laughing at it because, like I said, everything in this book is just super corny when it comes to the endings and setups. And it doesn't, it's not in like a good way, like a hearty har way. No, it's bad. And then the greenhouse, which is probably my second favorite if I had to say anything about it, wasn't the scariest by any means. It wasn't scary at all, actually. But there was a really weird guy. He's like a sailor guy in the greenhouse. And he invites you in. He has this weird, odd tone going for him. And he lets you go throughout rooms in his house. And he has endless piles of candy. Certain choices, like he'll make you eat candy. And if you try to run away from him, he'll basically like kill you. But if you... there's another path that you can take where you can get out of the house and go back out to the other houses only if you don't have any cavities. And then if you try to run away from him, he still like messes with your teeth. And even when you do that option, he makes you fill in your cavities and then you can leave. It's so bizarre and it's so corny. Like the whole dentist, the like sailor dentist guy and the greenhouse did not work at all as well. Nothing scary there. Really just silly and like slightly stupid things going on there as well. But let's get to the White Mansion part. So there are shortcuts that can lead you up to this point. Basically every house, when they send you to the shortcut, sends you to the same path and the same trajectory. So basically when you get to the White Mansion, you're now inside the gates. You make your way up. But you notice the gate is locked behind you, but you decide to go to the White House, the White Mansion, and try to get candy. You encounter Nathan, and Nathan says, I live here. And you discover that he's loaded, right? He said he has a pool room, he has a game room, he has a gym room, and he has a music room in his mansion, and the house is huge, and he wants him to come hang out with him and come see all the endless candy they have. But then there's a big twist that's revealed, and this is probably my second favorite thing about this book, is this setup with Nathan basically becoming the villain of the book. Nathan reveals to you that you are never a real friend to him. You're kind of mean, you ignore him, So he's created this monster called the Thing, which presumably is this guy on the book here. And I know there's a color that looks like blue and purple, but I think that's just how night looks on a white mansion. So this is supposed to be the white mansion, and this is, I think, supposed to be the Thing, even though the description in the book does not match the colors here. But he basically sends you on a wild goose chase, and this makes up, like I said, over half of the book, where you're running away, chasing after chasing after chasing from this thing called the Thing. And if you go down to the elevators or the stairs, no matter where you go, you have to basically pick between 4 rooms to go hide. If you choose the gym room, that's arguably the dumbest and corniest ending you can possibly get out of this whole story. If you go to the gym room, the ending is basically you befriend the Beast, and the Beast turns on Nathan, and you play catch with him, and now you're friends with him. Very weird. And then if you choose the pool room and the music room are kind of tied together a little bit. And I think those rooms give you the proper ending. Now, there's 2 endings that I would consider are kind of the proper ending. One ending is where you befriend the Thing, and you and the Thing leave the mansion, and you get to go trick-or-treating on Halloween together, and you get payback on Nathan for trying to basically kill you with this monster he created. And there's also some weird tangent stuff going on with, like, randomly ending up in a jungle and, you know, all that fun stuff as well. But the true ending, I would say, arguably, is even worse than that. The true ending basically comes to a point where you have to get the key to the gate to get it to leave, and you're said, I've defeated the Beast. After you've hid from the Beast, you lock the door, and the Beast basically try to pound through the steel thing he couldn't get through. Kind of tense in that scene, but not scary at all. But once you make it out of there, you find your way to Nathan, and you say, give me the key, and he's like, well, what are you going to do? And you threaten him with a wedgie. A wedgie. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. That's all I have to say. But then the game room was pretty interesting as well. The game room had some fun moments, as in it gets to... The game room kind of interlocks with all the other ones as well. You get to explore a lot more. You get to go up to this library place where you get to find... I think Nathan's hanging out, and he transports you into a book, and the Thing ends up in there with you, and there's a night jousting tournament where you either get hurt by the Thing and killed by the Thing, or you end up killing the Thing and win, and then, you know, you think you're okay, but then it transports you right back to where you were in the beginning. Mixed feelings on that one. I don't think that's the worst. I think that's probably like the second best ending out of the whole book, but not great by any means either. And basically, in a nutshell, that's Trick or Trapped. I know I was kind of rambling on, but there's really nothing to talk about here. I was just trying to get through it and skim through it. Okay, so let's try to get to the little positives I have. They're very minuscule here, but one of the positives I have is how it interlocked the story. You can go through house without having to go back to all the way back to point A. I really like that. I like that setup to the story. I liked the ending with the Santa Claus. That was actually pretty scary. The Santa Claus bit in the red house, arguably my favorite part of the whole book. And honestly, I like the setup with Nathan being the big bad guy, making this creature to kill you. But that goes without saying the negatives here. The Thing, he's the big bad villain. He's no different than other characters that have done this in other Goosebumps books, where he's just there to facilitate chase scenes. And he does nothing special. He's kind of treated like an idiot. He's kind of treated like he's easily manipulated. He doesn't think on his own kind of character. And he's not all that intimidating. He doesn't do really anything scary at all. Nothing. Very big disappointment. The house stuff with like the talking polar bear with the airplane and the dentist guy. And then the evil mad scientist with the pet gorilla that tries to barter candy from you, and your family making you play a board game. It's stupid. This whole, like, majority of this book is stupid. And then when you get to the White Mansion, it's just dry. This whole book is just dry of anything scary, anything fun. Like, it's kind of, like, silly, and some people might find the silliness fun, but there's really nothing scary like most Give Yourself Goosebumps have. There's genuinely scary moments in these books. This has one thing, and it's a special edition, and it's supposed to be, you know, a more immersive story. It's just a big dry book filled with corny endings and corny setups. And the true ending of this book is a slap in the face to the reader by forcing Nathan to give you the key by threatening to give him a wedgie. Like, how stupid is that? On top of it all, the game function possibly could have been the saving grace to this book and made it more fun. Majority of the bartering out of the trick-or-treat bag that this special edition power play was setting up here was done in one house. Maybe you got to use it one other time in another house, but it was mainly used in one house. Such a waste of time reading this. I swear. This was actually a chore to get through. I took many breaks because I was just bored. And I was also frustrated with how corny this book was. And I was smirking as, like, really? Did they actually make something like this and try to pass it off like a Goosebumps book? I know Goosebumps leans into the humor sometimes, but this leaned into it a little too heavy, I have to say. Just a little too heavy for my taste. So when it comes to a 0 to 5 star rating, I looked at it like this. This book sucked. I knew I was going to tank this book. Off the bat, for how dry this book is of horror, I deducted a full point. For how corny the setups were and the endings accumulatively sucked. There was maybe one or two, there's one decent ending and one ending I was actually impressed with. Everything else sucked. And there's 20 endings to these books, 18 of them sucked. So I deducted a full point off. And I deducted another 0.5 on top of that because the true end was, like I said, just a slap in the face to the whole reading experience. So we're at 2.5. And I deducted another 0.5 off for the wasted potential of the special edition power play here, where the whole trick-or-treat bag function and you get to flip a coin and see if you pick up the candy or not. That was interesting. And you got to pick up candy in all the houses, but you only ever got to barter the candy and utilize the function in basically one of the houses. Waste of time. Big waste of time altogether. So all those points added up to be 3 points total, taken off from 5. So from a 0 to 5 star rating, I'm giving this book a solid 2 out of 5. This sucks. I do not recommend this book whatsoever, unless you're a collector. If you want this book for your collection, duh, it's obvious. This is like a trophy book. Treat it like a trophy book. But you don't have to read it. Just skip it. Trust me. There are, like I said, the Santa part in the Red House. Maybe read the Red House part and then just drop it after. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Trick or Trapped. Let me know in the comment section if you have read this book before. Do you love it or do you hate it? I'm dying to know. And I'll see you next time.